Hey, this is Gary Striegler. I am hoping you enjoyed the first YouTube video we put out on first aid for doors, where I was trying to share as many things as I possibly could about how to correct doors that aren't quite working right, which is so irritating. Now we're going to cover a few more of those things. Sometimes if the door's dragging, and it could just simply be that it's taken on, a little bit of moisture or something, you can take a block plane and just by planing the edge a little bit, make it work. If you're going to plane it, you would want, if you possibly can, to take more. You want your block plane set a little more aggressiveness, but if you can take more off the back edge of the door than the front and give it a little bit of bevel, that'll help you have clearance. I know this is going to sound crazy, but one of the doors in that house I looked at, someone had worked on it quite a bit to bevel it, but apparently they did not know that you can remove the door because they'd planed the door off all the way down to within about 3 inches of the floor because they couldn't block plane down there, so they just stopped and it was still dragging at the bottom. All you got to do is just pop the hinges off, and then you can get the whole way. And again, I know that may sound kind of dumb, but some people may not realize how easy it is to pull the door off and work on it. So again, the goal is to make sure that the door's not dragging anywhere, that it's not hitting here or there when it closes, which may cause a spring. You want to clear the door stop. And one of the things that I haven't addressed is, what about if that door, when it sits there and it wants to open or close? Well, generally the reason for that is, this wall over here where the hinges are is out of plumb. If the wall's leaning this way a little bit, it's going to want to open automatically. If it's leaning the other way, it's going to close automatically. This starts to get a good bit more complicated, but what you can do is, and you want to have a good set of chisels. This is actually a very good set of chisels. It's NAREX. It's a Czechoslovakian company. You don't have to have this good set, but these are amazing chisels. And what I do is I keep a good sharp set of chisels just for stuff like this. And then I've got what I call my beater chisel just for everyday stuff. But there are times, one of the things I mentioned is it could be that hinge hasn't been set deep enough. They didn't route it deep enough at the factory. Well, that's kind of a pain, but you can take and, back those screws out and chisel a little bit deeper. Now, with this 5/8 radius, you go, well, how in the world can I do that, with a square chisel? That's where you want this really sharp 1/4 inch chisel that you can work your way around it, taking that radius out. One of the best tricks that I ever learned, if I need to take just a little bit out of this hinge or in the door, it can be either one. Don't just take your chisel, and these you can hit with a block of wood. Don't just start chiseling like that. What you actually want to do is take your chisel like this and make a series about every 1/2 inch or even more often, cutting in about as deep as you wanted to cut in. In other words, I'd go bam, 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 all the way up and down, and that series of little cuts in controls how deep when you come back and chisel this way, so you don't end up, with something either going way too deep or not getting deep enough. So again, it's great. Invest in a nice set of chisels. If you want a really nice set of chisels, of course, you can spend as much money as you want to, but this particular set is probably, I kind of walk the line between being a carpenter and a furniture builder. This is an amazing set of chisels for a carpenter, and it's an okay set of chisels for a furniture builder. So it's perfect for me. All right, so what about You know, that would be if I needed to take some out of this. What about if the door's automatically opening or closing? You don't really have a choice too much if the door's already been set. All you can do, for instance, if this wall was leaning that way at the top, what I'd probably try to do is cheat this hinge back some. And, you know, to do that, I'd have to move the stop. But, and you could, you know, the hinge pin's got clearance on the trim. You could literally move this hinge back 1/8 of an inch and help that hand. The other part of it is you go down the bottom and cheat it the other way a little bit. So I could literally take as much as 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit more out of this hinge by doing that. Now, if it was, let's see, that would be if it was automatically opening. If it was automatically closing, I would want to do just the opposite. I'd want to push this one out a little bit and bring that one back in. And you'd be amazed, 1/8 of an inch makes a world of difference. Now, some people, and you can find videos on it, will tell you if that door is kind of automatically opening or closing, to just take the hinge pin and bend it a little bit, and that little bit of friction will keep it from doing that. I've not been successful with it, but you might want to give it a try to see if you can get to do that. Now, one other thing that I want to show, if you are going to move that hinge, you know, 1/8 of an inch one way or the other, you've got to fill the screw holes so that the screw doesn't go back in the same place. Kitchen matches are great to put in to fill those screw holes. I understand golf tees work great. You know, what you want to do is put a little drop of glue there, drive the wood in, you know, 1/2, 3/4 an inch, take a multi-tool and flush it, or sharp chisel, and then you should be able to put the screw back where you want. You may want to take a really tiny pilot hole bit and drill that screw hole right where you want it to be, because it will still tend to go back in the same hole. But if you plug the hole, again, a little bit of glue, and the reason I've got this is, you know, if I'm anywhere on a job, I can always just take any kind of little bit of wood, just kind of round over, sharpen the edge a little bit, put a little glue on it, drive it in, and I'm ready to go. Well, I'm probably forgotten something, but that's a whole lot of what I know about how to adjust a door. But one other thing that I wanted to share is sometimes the doorknob just isn't working right either. One of the things I've noticed, you wouldn't think it, but sometimes, you know, this is held together by a couple screws. Sometimes it gets up or down a little bit and it's bound up. Sometimes the thing just gets loose. There have been times when I've just taken a screwdriver and loosened it up, moved it up or down just a little bit and tightened it back up, and it goes to work. You know, if it's down too much, it's going to bind up, okay? Now, this is actually a keyed exterior lock, and if you notice, it's got, this little bar is to keep it from being able to be picked easily with a credit card. When this is closed properly, see if I can think upside down and backwards here. Yeah, here we go. You'd actually want it like this. You don't want that little bar in there. You want it like that. And again, that would only apply maybe if this is like the door between the garage and the house or something. But that can be a thing that'll screw you up. If you get it all the way to there, the door may be super hard to get to open. But another thing, you can buy graphite, super easy fix. You know, you probably don't want to put oil in there because oil will drip down, but you can take the part, put a little bit of graphite in there. A lot of times that graphite will just loosen it up and make it work well. I didn't bring one with me, but if I've got a door that when it's closing, something's happened and it doesn't want to hit inside here anymore, you can take a little rotary bird that fits in a drill, it's basically a rotary file, And you can grind on this just a little bit and get you just enough clearance to where that door will now close. I have had to move striker plates up and down. And if you do that, it's kind of the same principle. You know, use a chisel, get it just right. You're going to need to plug the holes. And, you know, in that instance, if this is painted, you'd probably want to cover your striker plate with masking tape. Just run a little bit of caulk to cover which way you moved it. Sometimes, if this door shifted a little bit, you're going to need to take that 1/4-inch chisel, and if you had to move this up or down a little bit, take the 1/4-inch chisel and chisel a little bit of that wood out of the way, because the wood may be keeping it from closing. Then, just one more little thing. This is the simplest thing in the world. If you look at this striker plate, and this one's kind of old and bent up, but there's a little metal tab right here. On this one, it'd be right there. And if this door, you know, I said this door shouldn't be rattling when you close it. It should close nice and snug. If this door were rattling a little bit, I could literally take and put my screwdriver right in there and bend that out a little bit. You know, that's kind of an exaggeration there, but by bending that metal tab, it takes the movement out of the door when it's closed. Well, I'm sure there's lots of other tips and things. You know, when we get this posted on YouTube, I'm going to maybe be looking forward to some people sharing some of their tips about things to do with working on doors. There's one other thing that just struck me. You know, sometimes a door not working might be some, I'm going to use the word consolidation, because as a builder, I'd much rather say consolidation than settling. But sometimes, you know, things just happen in houses. And for instance, you know, if I was closing this door and it was dragging up here and everything else was good, you know, I might need to take from an 1/8 inch to nothing or something off the top of that door. That would be a great time to invest in a track saw, because, you know, when I set that track saw on a door and run it, it's going to trim exactly where that edge is, so I can take from an 1/8 to nothing off across the door. All these have some clamps that if you're going to get that precise, you probably want to clamp that track saw in place. And again, if you do have to cut that off, make sure you prime it back. But a track saw is a great investment, whether you're cutting off a door for carpet, or whether you need, if you have to trim one a little bit because there's been some consolidation. Okay, I want to tell one more thing on myself. This goes way, way back. If you do take this door and you lay it down, especially if it's maybe just a slab door, and you get ready to cut the bottom off, make sure you're really cutting the bottom off. One time on, you know, Saturday morning, we're out working on a job, everybody was having a good time talking about, went out to dinner Friday night or whatever, and brought the door in and laid it down. And I realized, oh, I just cut 1/4 inch off the top of the door. So do take a second look and make sure, if you laid the door down, sawhorse, and you're getting ready to trim it, make sure if you meant to cut off the bottom, you're cutting off the bottom. If you meant to trim the top, you trim the top. Again, there's probably not a mistake that can be made that I haven't made, but hopefully these videos on doors are going to be helpful to you, whether you're a pro or if you're a homeowner just wanting to fix some annoying problems.